Welcome back to Tweener Heads. Welcome back to another special video here today. We have someone who has created one of the biggest coaching seminars, maybe in the entire world, but for tennis instructors, he's done a great job. He's a good friend of mine, and I'm going to let him introduce himself.
Hey, Phil. Well, thanks so much for the kind introduction. And yeah, my name's Mirban Aranshad. And so what Phil was referring to is the Tennis Summit, which is an online tennis conference that I'll be hosting for the fifth time this year on April 19th. And yeah, we got about 14,000 players and coaches to attend, which was really fun. And I also host a podcast called the Tennis Files Podcast. And yeah, I just really appreciate, Phil, what you've been doing for the tennis community. I love watching your commentary and seeing you actually being out there in the field playing matches and showing us your footage, and like you're just everywhere. And I really want to thank you because it's really important to have people like you in the tennis community.
Thank you for your kind words. I really appreciate that. I wanted to have you on because you, with your Tennis Files podcast, with your insight, with everyone that you've interviewed, I wanted to get your perspective on coaching, talk about the summit. I mean, I think you have a lot to offer, but I want to first ask you, how did this come about for you? Because now you're signed with Tennis Channel. You're a part of the Tennis Channel podcast, I believe, sphere. So how did you get into this essentially?
Yeah, it's always fun to kind of reach back and see the beginnings, but it was very interesting. Obviously, a tennis nut like yourself, and way back, I think in 2015, I was searching for some advice on, I think it was how to hit a backhand.
Mhm.
And, there was some decent stuff out there, but it kind of got me thinking like, well, I think I can make some content of my own. I've been playing for years and taking lessons, and why don't I just try to put something out there? And so then I just started blogging a little bit. And then I noticed that there were podcasts out there. However, I didn't really see any interview style podcasts where people were interviewing coaches and then disseminating helpful information. So then I thought, you know what? Why don't I just try and see how to do that? And so I started that podcast in 2016, and it was, somewhat consistent. And then gradually I just kept going at it. And then I think it was maybe a year and a half or 2 years that the Tennis Channel approached me and asked me to join their Tennis Channel podcast network, which was great, and they've been fantastic. And then in regards to the summit, 2017, I noticed that there were other like spheres, other niches, if you will, where they were doing these online conferences. And I thought,
Mhm.
this is really cool. People from anywhere in the world, they can come and they can check out all these lessons. And, actually those conferences, a lot of them were, free for a certain period of time. And then there was optional, things you could get. But I thought, hey, like, why not just try to bring this to the tennis community? And so I did have some connections through my podcast that I had made. And then I also just cold reached out to certain people, and, some coaches who were, amazing, like Paul Anacone, they just said yes out of the blue. And so, yeah, I just kind of kept going at it as well with just the intention to keep improving each time. And then here we are with our fifth one coming up in April. So it's been a
Love it.
great journey and just great connections. Yeah.
For you, for coaches and players, for all the people that you've interviewed, I think the first question that I would have to ask you is, who was besides Paul Anacone, who's coached Taylor Fritz, Roger Federer,
Right.
who has been one of the biggest names that you've interviewed? For those of you that haven't seen your podcast or listened to it.
Sure. Well, okay. So as far as the most name recognition, it would actually be James Blake. So I had him. Yeah, it's really cool. I actually had him on the podcast a
Mhm.
couple years back, and then I was talking to a particular company who specialized in nutrition and preventing cramping, and then they actually James is on their team. So then they were
Wow.
able to bring him back, yeah, on the summit. And so I got to ask him a bunch of questions about preparation and, his obviously his career, amazing career, number 4 in the world. And just such a stand-up guy as well. So classy. I remember disconnecting with him a few times the first time we were interviewing, or I
Mhm.
interviewed him. And then he was the one who was and I was pretty sure I end, so that was a great person that I had interviewed that I think most people probably know about.
He's
Yeah.
actually from my hometown, so a lot of people don't know that. He's from Fairfield, Connecticut. He's a Connecticut guy, so I was really happy when I got to see him, I believe at the Connecticut Open 2, maybe oh my gosh, it's 2021, so 3 years ago now. Jeez. So it was
Mm.
interesting to see him be a part of the tennis world, and I'm actually working with his company now, Swing Vision, which is probably one of my favorite apps to use, a selfless plug. But what did you want to know from him as a ex tennis player, as a former number four? What was the mindset going into an interview with such a recognizable name, I should say?
Yeah, fantastic question, Phil. So I was particularly interested in finding out how he prepared for his matches, how he trained, just his mental state, and how he went about things to reach such a high level in his career. And I
Mhm.
think a lot of us remember that match where he's beaten Nadal before, just smashing forehands and serve. So yeah, I asked him about that. And what was quite striking and perhaps rare, but he told me that he basically never got nervous. But I think the most important point here is because he said that he prepared very hard before each match. He always came up with a game plan, and then he also would visualize each match before it happened. So he would visualize his game plan being implemented, where he would play the specific points in his head, what shot he would be hitting, and I thought that that was very interesting, where it's something that we can all apply. I mean,
Mhm.
we before matches, we should be devising a game plan around our strengths and ways to exploit our opponent's weaknesses, provided that we know the opponent, and then to visualize some of these points playing out. And I think that just somehow physiologically and mentally, it just really helps you prepare and be more calm and confident about how you're going to be going about your match. So that was
Mhm.
really cool to learn about from James.
I feel like for him, he was one of those guys with big ground strokes, big shots, and for me, watching him, he was probably one of my idols growing up, with a one-hander that was not necessarily the conventional Roger Federer, Grigor Dimitrov backhand. And we kind of see that now with Team and Wawrinka, but I thought Blake was the first one to kind of have that straight, flat backhand that others could relate to, that wasn't, as some people quote unquote say, pretty.
Hmm. Yeah,
So
no.
go ahead.
Oh, no, no. I was just going to agree with you. And yeah, I think definitely a really powerful, person who's a U.S. player that we could all just kind of empathize with and really enjoy his aggressive game. But yeah,
Mhm.
go ahead.
I was gonna follow up with that, with that's the most recognizable name that maybe you have interviewed from someone that doesn't follow tennis. But what's the best piece of advice or tip that someone has given you? Because I feel like through the amount of coaches, through the amount of players that you've interviewed, whether it was for the summit or whether it was from the podcast, you've had a variety of characters talk to you about how to make your game better. What was one thing that stood out for you that someone wouldn't necessarily know? Or what was one thing that you remember specifically from an interview?
Yeah, great question, Phil. And I love preparing, so I prepared like this huge list. So we'll
Yes.
definitely get into it.
Love
Yeah,
it.
yeah, for sure, man, for sure. But one that was really eye-opening for me was advice from Rick Macy. So
Mm,
he's coached so many world number ones, like the Williams sisters and Andy Roddick. I mean, several others. And so one really cool tip. So the serve is obviously like the stroke that is so important, and a lot of people struggle with, especially at the amateur level. And so what Rick has identified in a lot of amateurs is that they have a premature racket drop. And the thing is, like, the leg drive is what should initiate the racket drop. But
mhm,
instead, what people are doing is, they're in the trophy position and then they drop their racket and then they push up. And so what that's doing is just it's breaking the kinetic chain, and it's not allowing you to be as efficient as you can be with your body. And so what I did was I experimented by just abbreviating the motion to where I just get in the trophy position and my legs are bent, and then I you know coordinate the leg drive and then the racket drop, and then I noticed just an explosion of power. And so
Mhm.
that's a big thing with a lot of people. I think they just get more they just get tentative, like, oh, they really want to hit the ball, so they do that, they perform the racket drop too early, and then it's just like the kinetic chain, as Dr. Mark Kovac says, is broken. And so that was a really cool tip that I really enjoyed hearing from Rick, that got my mind going.
Well, did he talk specifically with, because in terms of those three people that you spoke about, Andy Roddick and the Williams sisters, Serena and Venus, did he say anything specific with Roddick or Venus's serve? Because those are two of the serves that in the history of tennis have been very unique and very powerful, because Venus, I think, at one time held the record for fastest serve. She might still have it to this day. Same with Andy Roddick. Andy Roddick had one of the, I wouldn't say most unconventional serves, but it was very compact and very quick. And that's one of the reasons why a lot of people believe that he retired early, because his shoulder couldn't take the pressure of that serve any longer. So, did he speak about that in any particular point? And was that a key factor for talking about that racket drop?
Yeah, I wish I could say it was because of that, but it was just more of kind of we had a technique session where a couple years back I asked Rick about common technique pitfalls and
Mhm.
how to go about changing your technique. And so I mean it's very interesting. That's a great point. And I think with Roddick, definitely the abbreviated take back was unique. And I think it was lucky that he, well, not lucky, I'm sure he worked on this, but his shoulder
Yeah.
mobility probably helped him so much to be able to get in that great racket drop position to then explode up. But I think that obviously both those players, their kinetic chain work is pretty solid.
Mhm.
And it didn't the discussion wasn't a byproduct of any
Mhm.
particular player, I would say, but it's just his observation, because he coaches a lot of amateur as well as great players, so he's observed that particular technical flaw there.
In terms of staying on that coaching topic, you said that you've been through some of the things that they have taught you. Have you tried to reiterate your own philosophies with coaching? Have you taught other people what's going on, or the new ways that you've been learning through these other coaches?
Yeah, I basically I mean, it's amazing. There's the old saying that we all stand on the shoulder of giants. So
Mhm.
I'm just I consider myself mainly a player who's just trying to learn out there. And so there's a lot of different philosophies and aspects of the game that I've taken in from coaches that I just try to disseminate. And I take what I think is maybe correct and even explore the things that maybe aren't as correct. But there's so many different aspects, from technique to things like the proper unit turn, that you notice that a lot of players are like just using their arms, and while what's really important is the hips and shoulder turn there. And strategically, where players just aren't quite playing to the right spot, or they could be simplifying what they're trying to accomplish out there, and going out there with no game plan. And on the mental game side, I just like kind of blabbering on these different tips. But yeah, I mean the main thing is I definitely try to just in the podcast and in maybe like live summit sessions to reiterate to the people what I've learned. And it's really fun for me, and it's really great. I feel like we, because of our platforms, me and you, we get to learn from the best, and that's just what really makes me enjoy what I do every day.
It really does, because seeing, and I personally, I like working with players to just help them get better, whether it's in point play or just seeing the juniors transition into a more competitive state of their life for tennis. And I love seeing how fast they can grow or how productive they are. Whether or not I'm teaching the right thing, that's a whole nother story. But just having them develop to a certain degree has been one of the more enjoyable factors of being a coach. And for you, what is the most important thing that you would recommend to work on for juniors or for a player? What's the most important aspect that people should focus on first?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. I mean, I think I'll maybe give a couple steps. The first thing is
Go for
it's
it.
really important to define. Yeah, I appreciate it. The first thing is you want to define like what level it is that you want to get to, because this in large part kind of determines what you need to work on. So
Mm,
like if a junior, if like their aspiration is like a certain level, like I want to get to 4.5, or I just want to get to the college level, then maybe we examine your strokes and perhaps there's some room for technical improvement, but instead we go towards this strategic side
okay.
and we say, okay, that's what we need to work on and sharpen your decision making skills. But on the other hand, if you really want to get to that, the highest level that you can, then maybe it's you'd want to actually put the time in and sustain, any losses that you might need to in order to really amplify that technique and get the most out of your strokes. But
Mhm.
I would say for the people that I work with, the most important is probably the strategy and then a bit of the mental game too, because I get so you know it, again, I'm going in all these different areas, but I
No
think like the
worries.
yeah no, I mean like the mental game is something where it's really limiting so many players. Like they struggle to be able to trust their training and to perform well in the big stages. And I found that that's been like particularly this tough for me too, when you get to these spots where you play a match, it's a close match, and then you lose and you feel like, oh, I just mentally I can't seem to break through. And so there's a lot of different techniques that you can do to sustain your focus, that we can get into perhaps. But
Mhm.
it's you can't have one area of the game lag too far
Yeah.
down, because imagine you have all you got great strategy, technique, and mental game, but then your fitness is junk, then you're
Yeah.
not going to be able to last. So you do have to water all sides of the garden, so to speak, to some extent. But
Mhm.
you kind of have to really, at the end of the day, assess what is holding you back the most, and then work on that. That's another way to approach it, I think.
I think that's a very good answer because it's not necessarily one thing that you have to work on. It's
Yeah.
a variety of things, and it's a variety of making sure that everything's connected, everything's working in unison. Because for me, and I want to go back to that mental state that you were talking about, there's a lot of kids at this age that I see that are struggling with their mental toughness or their mental capacity, or if I can call it that, because even during practice they'll get upset or they'll throw the rackets or I feel like they're almost going to cry. And for me, I don't know, I've heard from other people, not necessarily people that I work with, but that it comes down to how they're raised and maybe there's a background to why they act this way on court. But I feel like that should be separate from their acts on court, because if they don't figure out how to stay mentally stable or just have a good mental state when they play, it's going to turn out to be one of the worst aspects of your game by the time you're 14, 15, 16, when tournaments actually start counting towards whether or not you want to play college, whether or not you want to go pro. So I just wanted to hear your thoughts more on how do you develop a junior's game when they're younger.
Yeah, I mean, a couple of different things. I mean, first off, I think that trying to find a great support system, great coaches, that always helps a lot. I mean, I know sometimes people want to go about it on their own, but if you can, then it would be great to get somebody who can help you with that. Also, I mean, I think one very illuminating thing to keep in mind, which personally helps me a lot. I mean, I'm not a junior, but it would help them as well. Is the Craig O'Shaughnessy, he does a lot of statistics. He
Mhm.
espouses the importance of knowing
Yeah.
that, and it's amazing that, as you know, Phil, the number one player in the world, they're winning like maybe 55% of the total
Mhm.
points, maybe even less. And so you have to keep that in mind too, as a junior, and any players like that. You're
Yeah.
going to make mistakes. It's totally fine. Like, you have to have this long-term vision of just improving every single day and trying to get the best out of yourself. and focusing on winning each and every, focus on 1 point at a time. You can't get
Yeah.
too overwhelmed with the end result. And that was that way, for most of my career, even in college. And I remember my first match as a college player, I was up 6-2, 5-1. And then it was actually against a friend too. And I was thinking, how great it would be to win the match, my first college match. And then obviously, I got wrecked by the end of it, and I lost. And it's tough, but yeah, I mean, I think just remembering that it's a long-term game, and to keep developing your game and surrounding yourself with people who really truly are good at the mental game. So it's, it helps if your parent is actually involved to a decent degree. So yeah, there's a couple of tips in there, but hopefully that would help
So
juniors.
yeah, is there a video that you have that talks about the mental state that you would like to shout out that could help juniors?
Yeah, gosh. So I would say
There's so many.
I would yeah, I don't want I want to sound like that, but I would say, if you were to go to tennisfiles.com/podcast, and then there's a player there for like all the podcasts that I have, which is like by now I think 184, 185. And so what you can do is you can actually, no, thank you. Is you can actually, that was Phil clapping, by the way.
Yes,
Very supportive, man.
of
And yeah,
course.
so you can basically, you can go on that player and you can type in mental or mindset. And so I have some really good,
Mhm.
in my biased opinion, interviews with Jeff Greenwald is one, Joey Johnson is another one. There's several of them, and so you should just seek out those mental game podcast episodes, and those are fantastic. And then also, for the tennis summit coming up, I
Good
devote a full
transition.
day.
Good
Yeah,
transition.
exactly. The transition. Yep. Perfect. I have a mental game day, so we
Yeah.
have like usually 5 or 6 different, sessions on that. So that's really fun. And we'll probably at least do, I know for sure we're going to do at least one live, I think with Gigi Fernandez. So that'll be
Oh, that'd
fun.
be sweet.
Yeah. On the mental game.
Yeah.
So yeah, check some of that out.
I think that's actually a perfect transition because I wanted to talk to you more about the summit, and I wanted to break down kind of what you do without giving away all the content that you're going to be providing. So for this tennis summit, what, how many days is it? What are you going to be focusing on? And how can people be a part of it more on, like, just as a spectator or contributor? Because for me, I think I'll definitely sign up for this year because I would like to learn more about other aspects of people's coaching techniques. So tell us about it.
Sure. Well, yeah, I appreciate the opportunity. Yeah, I mean, it's really exciting. It's going to be fun. So the way it's going to be broken down, and so I think that the broad focus is to help you transform your tennis game, and so we're really focused on giving advice that's going to, you actionable steps that you can take away from these sessions. And so the way it's broken down is the first 2 days are going to be on technique.
Mhm.
So, serve, forehand, backhand, volley, footwork, all that stuff. The third and fourth days are going to be singles strategy and double strategy. And then the fifth day is going to be the mental game, and then the sixth day is fitness. And I think we might switch around like the last couple of days, but each day has like 5 to 6 presentations, like on court instruction from the coaches, and also some live streams too, which is really fun. We get to interact. You can ask us questions. And we've got some great coaches already booked. Like Paul Anacone, Rick Macy, Dr. Mark Kovacs.
Nice.
A lot of people. It'll be great. And yeah, I mean, it's just fun for me. I contact all these coaches, and they're really amazing. And they're so generous with their time that they, put in to help you all. And I definitely want you to check them out as well.
Mhm.
But actually, I set up a page for you all. If you go to tennisfiles.com/tweenerhead, then you can learn all about the summit that's coming up. and also include a free ebook for you all that'll have like a bunch of of the best advice from the summit and podcast guests of mine. But yeah, I mean that's pretty much it. But it's just really fun, and actually, it's totally free to watch these sessions, which I think is really cool. It's
Mm,
important for me to be able to provide this, to as many people as possible. So as I mentioned, like I think at the top of the hour, perhaps, is that like, you can watch each presentation for a couple days from when they go on live, and then
yeah.
there's an option if you'd like to get like lifetime access. But I mean, either way, it would be great to have you, and we're just trying to
Mhm.
spread tennis knowledge to as many people as possible.
Of
So
course.
yeah,
I think that's the whole goal with this. And I think that's the whole goal of what we've
yeah.
been trying to do. My dog is freaking out. I do apologize for that. Oh my god.
Sorry, I love dogs.
But for I think with our platforms and with yours particularly, having that ability to offer something to people that don't necessarily have that kind of access to coaching or don't have that access or time to go out, get certified, go out and get all these qualifications, but just to learn more about the game, not just as a coach, but as a player as well. Because for me, that's one of the things that I like to do is you learn by doing. And I'm a visual learner. I'm a doer with my hands. It's so for me, getting out there and trying it myself is a lot better, especially when you have presentations like that. I think it allows people to connect to it more on a more personal level.
Yeah, yeah, totally, totally. And yeah, I think to that point, I've been learning each year. I try to get feedback from the audience, and I think the first year I did quite a few interviews, and then I learned that people, they really appreciate like on-court instruction. So I've been having the instructors do more of that, and we still mix in, some interviews. Obviously, there's some guests that have less time than others, so we do what we can, but it's really fun, and just trying to find ways to improve. So I mean, if you have any feedback, anything, I'm so happy to take it into account, and try to improve the event. It's just it's a fun time for me, put a lot of work into it, but it's obviously great to get you all there and to participate and just enjoy and just learn and improve. There's no better feeling, as Phil can attest to, when you learn something and then you implement it and then it works, or maybe it doesn't the first time, but gradually you keep working at it and then you have success. It's all part of life, and in general, just like trying to improve and do what you can, and enjoying the game and life.
Well, that was one of the things actually that's really funny that you say that because I was teaching someone this past weekend and we were doing a private and I was trying to teach her because she keeps her elbow in when she swings. And I was trying to make sure, well, one of the things I try to teach people is if we go up to the back tarp, extending your arm and sweeping up on it, kind of to create that topspin effect. She then did that a couple times and then we went to the ball and she actually hit it. And I was like, I did that. I was able to contribute to someone's success. So that's one of those feelings that you offer with Tennis Summit. That's with everyone's coaching, and it just makes it more entertaining for everyone else to learn about.
Yeah, no, 100%. I mean, that's the best feeling. Like, just like you get by teaching, and you get great comments on your work too, which should be applauded. I mean, when I get these emails from people who are like, wow, like I really enjoyed that tip from Paul, or the YouTube video that you did on strategy or whatever, it really is very satisfying and delightful. And that's really keeps me going sometimes, because I'm sure you feel the same, Phil, where there's some days where it's like, I don't, maybe we don't feel like doing this as much, and we have other jobs too, but
Yeah.
when you get that feedback, that positive feedback, that helps. So keep it coming for us.
No, especially for you. And before we end, I just want to make sure that everyone goes to check out your website, your podcast, Tennis Files. You have a lot to offer that I love to listen to and watch. And I really appreciate you taking time out of your day to come talk to us, to share your opinions, to talk about the summit, because we need more content like this. So I really appreciate you coming to talk to us.
Yeah, anytime, Phil. And again, I mean, great job in what you're doing. You're
Thank you.
you're so passionate about the game. Like I just really again enjoy hearing what you have to say about what's going on in the tennis community, as well as your tennis tournaments. So keep up the great work. And yeah, obviously would appreciate it if you would check out tennisfiles.com/tweenerhead for that. And obviously, the Tennis Files podcast, and keep following Phil's work too. That's very important. So yeah, thanks so much, Phil. And just, keep it up.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. And if you guys have made it to the end of the video, thank you for making it to the end of the video. I really appreciate that, you guys. And if you aren't subscribed to Tweener Head Tennis, make sure you are subscribed. We're going for 2,000 subs by the end of the summer, which would be amazing. So make sure you hit that sub button, as well as making sure you hit that like button as well. It's completely free. So make sure you go do that. And I hope to see you guys soon. Thank you guys so much for watching. Take care, guys.